Welcome to the Cult Movie Cantina.
Woo!
This is the podcast that look at some of your favorite cult films, adds of alcoholic beverage,
Yeah, that's me.
introduces someone who's not seen them,
Definitely me.
and then we talk about it. This week we looked at the 1982 sci-fi classic Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Yay!
Yay! I'm your host, your Native American pop culture spirit guide, Scotty, and I'm joined by, as always,
Your facilitator of fun and lady of libations, Stephanie.
Justina, your Jellicle Jester.
she who knows no movies.
Admiral.
Admiral.
I don't know about that.
Much like Kirk.
I-
Much
no,
like
Which is
Kirk.
one of the only takeaways I took from that movie.
I think it's appropriate for this episode that she's allowed to be.
If she wants to be an admiral, that's fine.
I feel
She
like
can be
especially the fact that I connected it with Kirk.
There you
Okay,
go.
thank you.
She
Because that
could
was
be-
a thing.
Admiral. Admiral Justina.
Cool.
Admiral Justina didn't check on our progress. Oh, we have so much to talk about. We have a guest.
I know we do.
I'm so excited for our guest. Our guest is what I would consider a local celebrity.
Absolutely.
In certain zip codes.
A Mobile legend.
A mobile legend,
And
definitely.
again, only in certain zip codes. I can drive a very short distance and be non-legendary.
From the internet famous Uncle Henry show, it's the one and only Uncle Henry.
Thank you for having me here. One of my favorite movies of all time
I'm
will be discussed.
surprised by that because you don't seem to me as a Star Trek fan. I know you're a fan of certain things. I know you like Ronald Reagan and the Alabama football team, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, roll. Look, how can you look as a male from a certain era? How can you not like Kirk?
That's true.
Kirk's amazing.
I mean,
Again, this has to do with generational things, Justina.
Oh, it
And
definitely does.
Generational and all of that. So Kirk, how do you not like Kirk? Well, we'll get into this.
Yeah,
right?
we'll get into that. Before we get started, though, as of this recording yesterday, we heard some tragic news that we just want to just reflect on. Chadwick Boseman,
oh my goodness.
who played Black Panther, and Jackie Robinson and Thurgood Marshall, and just an amazing young actor, passed away suddenly yesterday of colon cancer at the age of 43. And so just wanted to mention that, and very, very tragic.
Yeah, very sad. From what I understand, he had been battling the colon cancer while he was filming Black Panther and the Avengers movies, which is amazing that he was able to do all the things he needed to do physically to make those movies and be in the amount of pain that he was in.
And then the treatments and the whole,
Right.
just an amazing young actor. Someone that I just turned 43, so it's just a little, and you were just in the hospital with issues,
yeah.
and just kind of hit close to home.
Absolutely.
And so I just thought it would be appropriate for us to start the show and talk about that for just a second. But let's get into the movie itself. So the film we saw was Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan from 1982. We're going to watch the trailer now.
Beyond the darkness, beyond the human evolution, is Khan, a genetically superior tyrant. Exiled to a barren planet, banished by a starship commander he is destined to destroy. Left for dead, he has survived.
I'll chase him round the moons of Nebula and round the Antares maelstrom and round perdition's flames before I give him up. There she is. There she is. Fire!
Shield's collapsing, Captain. Can you give me phaser power? A few shots, sir.
Not enough against their shields.
The base is stubborn.
Scotty, I need warp speed in 3 minutes or we're all dead. I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you, and I wish to go on hurting you. I shall leave you as you left me, marooned for all eternity, buried alive, buried alive. Sean! Sean!
At the end of the universe lies the beginning of vengeance. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Opens at a theater near you, June 4th.
Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, 1982, directed by Nicholas Meyer, written by Harv Bennett, Jack B. Sword. Screenplay was by Sword, but Nicholas Meyer and a few other hands were into it. This film was made on a bunch of different drafts, and when Nicholas Meyer, when he got brought in on the project, he looked at all the drafts and picked and chose what he liked, and then added some stuff on his own. Meyer was famously known as not a Star Trek fan. They picked him as a director because he was, he's a writer first. He was a huge Sherlock Holmes fan, so he's written some Sherlock Holmes novels. He directed some Sherlock Holmes films, and they brought him in for his directing and writing style and thought he could write the ship. And I think that's true. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get deeper into the film. Stars William Shatner as James T. Kirk, Leonard Nimoy as Spock. Finally, a movie with Spock in it.
There you
Yeah,
go.
eyebrows. Got to know him.
DeForest Kelley as Dr. Leonard McCoy. My namesake James Doohan as Scotty. Walter Koenig as Chekhov. George Takei as Sulu. Oh my.
Oh my.
Nichelle Nichols as Uhura. B.B. Bisic as Carol Marcus. Merritt Buttrick as David Marcus. The late, great Paul Winfield as Captain Tyrell. Kirstie Alley in her first major motion picture role as Savick. And then you cannot forget Ricardo Montalban.
Oh, he's amazing.
As Khan.
God.
So you ready to start the sermon?
Preach on, brother.
Brothers and sisters, gather round. Admiral James T. Kirk oversees a simulator session of Captain Spock's trainees. In the simulation, Lieutenant Savick commands the starship USS Enterprise on a rescue mission to the neutral zone to save the crew of the damaged ship Kobayashi Maru, but is attacked by Klingon cruisers and critically damaged. The simulation is a no-win scenario designed to test the characters of Starfleet officers, which kills the crew. Sort of. They're just play acting. Yay. Later, Dr. McCoy joins Kirk on his birthday, giving him gifts of Romulan ale and glasses. Because he cannot...
Reading glasses.
Reading glasses because he can't use their sci-fi magic to make his eyes work.
He's allergic to whatever the sci-fi...
Retinics, I think is what they call it. Yeah. Seeing Kirk is low in spirits, Doctor advises Kirk to get his command back and not grow old behind his desk. Meanwhile, the starship Reliant is on a mission to search for a lifeless planet to test the Genesis device, a technology designed to reorganize dead matter into a habitable world. Reliant officers Commander Pavel Chekhov and Captain Clark Terrell beam down to evaluate a planet they believe to be Ceti Alpha V. Once there, they're captured by the genetically engineered tyrant Khan. Noonan Singh, 15 years prior, Kirk exiled Khan and his fellow Supermen to Ceti Alpha V after they attempted to take over his ship. After they were marooned, Ceti Alpha VI exploded, devastating the surface of Ceti Alpha V, blah, 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 following the deaths of several people, including his wife. For those reasons, Khan plans revenge. He implants Chekhov and Terrell with indigenous eel larvae. Yay.
That bothered me watching that when I was young, and it even bothered me still watching it as an adult.
It's kind of gross. Then rendering them susceptible to mind control, and uses them to capture the Reliant. Learning of the Genesis device, Khan attacks Space Station Regular 1, where the device is being developed by Kirk's former lover, Dr. Carol Marcus, and her son, David. Kirk assumes command of the Enterprise after the ship deployed on a training cruise receives a distress call from Regular 1. En route, the Enterprise is ambushed and crippled by the Reliant. Khan offers to spare Kirk's crew if they relinquish all materials related to Genesis. Kirk instead stalls for time and remotely lowers the Reliant shields, enabling a counterattack. Khan is forced to retreat and effect repairs. While Enterprise limps to Regular 1, Kirk, McCoy, and Savick beam to the station and find Tyrell and Chekhov alive, along with the slaughtered members of Marcus's team. They soon find Carol and David hiding Genesis deep inside the nearby planetoid of Regula. Khan, having used Tyrell and Chekhov as spies, orders them to kill Kirk. Tyrell resists the eel's influence and kills himself, while Chekhov collapses and the eel leaves his body. Kirk destroys it. Khan transports Genesis and the Reliant, intended to maroon Kirk on the lifeless planetoid, but is tricked by Kirk and Spock's coded arrangements for a rendezvous. Kirk directs the Enterprise into the nearby Mutari Nebula. Conditions inside the nebula render shields useless, compromising targeting systems, making Enterprise and Reliant evenly matched. Spock notes that Khan's tactics indicate inexperience in three-dimensional combat, which Kirk exploits to disable Reliant. Mortally wounded, Khan activates Genesis, which will reorganize all the matter in the nebula, including Enterprise. Though Kirk crew detects the activation and attempts to move out of the range, they will not be able to escape the nebula without the ship's inoperable warp drive. Spock goes to resolve the warp drive in the engine room, which is flooded with radiation. When McCoy tries to prevent Spock's entry, Spock incapacitates him with a Vulcan nerve pinch and performs a mind meld, telling him to remember. Spock repairs the warp drive and Enterprise escapes the explosion, which forms a brand new planet. Before dying of radiation poison, Spock urges Kirk not to grieve, as his decision to sacrifice himself to save the ship's crew was a logical one. A space barrel is held and Spock's coffin is shot into orbit around the new planet. The crew leaves to pick up Reliant's marooned crew from Ceti Alpha V. Spock's coffin is shown having soft landed on the surface of the Genesis planet. Credits. Yay. So there's a lot to unpack here.
There's a lot. I feel like that was just such a... There's so much missed in that synopsis.
Well, it's just a synopsis. We don't want to. We want to save it all for the discussion.
That's true.
So I want to start with Justina.
Please don't.
Because
oh god,
this morning we got a text from her. We have a little private message where we all talk, and she said, and
I'm pretty sure I said this is the worst. I'm pretty sure.
I think you said boring is more.
Oh no, I said boring, but I think I started with this is the worst.
I think you did. Let me see. I've got it. Oh, right here. Right here.
They're looking. It's going to be this is the worst. That was my first message.
Oh yeah.
These movies are the worst.
Okay, there it is.
As in
it was
Star
all
Trek
of the
movies.
Star Trek movies have been the worst so far. My bad. I stand
These
corrected.
movies are the worst.
And it's just so boring.
It's.
So what are your thoughts?
Well, I learned a lot from your synopsis. Like, I didn't know there was, like, a connection between the Doctor and Kirk. Like, there's so many... Okay. I know there was action, but the music was more action-filled than the action? Like, it was like, oh, no, we have to go. And then they walk leisurely and, like, tell me about this. Let's talk over here in the bridge. Let's have a conversation. And then the music was like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then they would get hit, and you would just see people jump. Like, there would be an explosion and the actors would just jump to the side. I was like, I can't right now. It doesn't help that I don't know the people. So you can tell that there's, like, the Doctor and Kirk at the very beginning. You're like, well, they know each other. They've got to be friends. But I don't know them. And William Shatner does not look like the William Shatner I know from things from when he's older. So the whole time was me going, is that you? Every time he turned, I was like, I guess it is. But he does look very different, younger than he does older.
Yes.
Some people just...
as we all do.
But I mean, some people you can tell. But with William Shatner, I seriously the whole time was like, that's Kirk, right? The one with the glasses on? Reading right there? I don't know. It doesn't look like him. I know him from Psych, the TV show that I enjoy a lot, when they bring him in for an episode on that, a couple episodes. So I know him from a different context.
So that's her way of saying she's never seen the show or anything.
No. Correction.
She knows nothing about
I have seen an episode of the movie episode.
You saw a movie, but with a completely different...
This is what they do to me. This is what they do to me.
One of our hobbies is we just find, especially with these Star Trek films, the only other Star Trek film she saw was First Contact. So she has a whole other different context.
Which is, the Next Generation cast.
So we just like to pick her up.
And I hadn't seen anything before that, to be clear. Okay. So we get done, and I was like, I genuinely don't know the story that just happened. They're like, well, you have to know the people. You guys picked a movie in the middle of a series.
May I speak?
Of course.
Please do.
All right,
Please
look,
do.
Justina, God bless her,
Help
because
me.
the movie was made for people like me that had watched the original series. And my standpoint of a Star Trek fan was I was around when it was actually on broadcast television, the original series, and then there was no other Star Trek, and we all that enjoyed it watched the reruns over and over and over again until they started coming out with the movies. And so the movie was huge fan service for people like me. So you not being a fan and not being familiar with that series, it didn't offer you much of anything other than beautiful music there in the background.
It did have beautiful music.
But for me, as a fan, it served all of my needs as a fan. As a fan of the original series, to me, that was peak original Star Trek. It may be peak Star Trek of all time. Certainly the best Kirk performance you'll ever get. The best Kirk story you're ever going to get.
Absolutely.
The best Kirk hairpiece you're ever going to get. His hairpiece, and as someone that is very aware of hairpieces, his hairpiece outstanding. You only focus on it a few times when you're viewing the movie. And the back and forth between William Shatner and Ricardo Montalban never gets old, Justina. I can watch these two old men going back and forth with the wanting revenge and vengeance and just the back and forth. So much fun. And probably the best Star Trek battles in space. I can't think of another one that had the same impact. It just, as a fan of the original series, top to bottom, it is peak Trek, and it also lays the ground for future stuff. So many things referenced in the future that stuck with the entire franchise, like the Kobayashi Maru.
Absolutely.
So do you think that this movie may not have held that same level if you don't know the story of the characters?
I realized that someone unfamiliar with it and not of that generation would not nearly enjoy it as much as somebody that would. I thought about that a lot when I was watching it. I thought, would somebody unfamiliar with Trek like this as a movie? I'll tell you, I have a female relative that's older than me, an aunt, and she went and saw us with us back in the original. She was unfamiliar with Star Trek, and her comment was that she liked the uniforms.
Oh, my goodness.
That was her only comment, that she liked the uniforms.
I was surprised by the uniforms because everybody was wearing red, and I felt like those were the people that died.
I thought that was orange.
And that was red coats.
No, that was like clearly orange that they were wearing.
No, oh, okay, you're saying you thought they wore orange.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was
I
like
just remember
burnt
going,
orange.
why are they all wearing red? Are they going to die? And there's a simulation at the very beginning. They all die. And I was like, well, credits. We knocked this movie out fast. And then they got up, and I was like, just kidding.
My husband told me that when he first saw the movie, he was young, a kid, basically, because he saw it in the theaters when it first came out. And he said that, of course, he grew up watching the original series, and he said that the opening scene, when they were doing the simulation, of course, you don't realize it's a simulation, and that he said that he was devastated, like when you see Spock die and all this die, like right there at the beginning of the movie, he was like, "What's going on?"
No,
I was just devastated.
So I have some, I was going to say this for the trivia, but since we're talking about something we should address. So Leonard Nimoy, who plays Spock.
Thank you. Thank you.
for the audience there.
Appreciate it.
Was famously done with the role. He wrote a book that says I'm not Spock, and he wanted to progress on from that role. I mean, it was the role that made him, but he was trying to go and to do other things.
Bless his heart, he could never do it.
He agreed to do the first Star Trek motion picture film. The paycheck for him was really good, and he needed it at the time. That's from his later book. But he agreed that this would be his only one, and if he wanted to do any other ones, he would have to die. He didn't want to do any more. So they talked him into doing 2, promised him a death. So Gene Roddenberry's assistant went to a convention in London, over in England, and mentioned that, oh yeah, we're working on a new Star Trek film where Spock dies. Now, this is pre-internet, so it took a little while for the information to go, around
to travel,
but it finally did. And so, back then there were all these, instead of message boards and chat rooms and things that we have, they had fan magazines, fanzines, and all these fanzines that you would pay people to send you these magazines they had created. All they talked about was the death of Spot. Oh my God, they're killing Spot, and Paramount got just tons of hate letters and all this other stuff and death threats and all kinds of craziness, and so that affected the script. Originally, the whole Kobayashi Maru thing's not in there in the early drafts at all, and so because they wanted to do, everyone knew the secret. Everyone, how do we make the secret stick? So we'll kill Spock off in the beginning. He gets up. Oh, that's how he died. Everything is good. And so no one is aware that at the end of the movie that he actually dies.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's
it's so interesting that they wrote that Kobayashi Maru for that purpose, and it turned out to be such great defining characterization of Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they reference it still today. Love it.
Right. Kirk is the only person to ever have beat the Kobayashi Maru.
What? Okay.
It's
Kobayashi
a training
Maru.
exercise that every officer has to take. It's like a test,
Uh-huh.
and it's a no-win situation. I mean,
And that's what happened in the beginning.
That's
with
the beginning,
beginning.
right?
Okay.
And it's supposed to be a no-win situation, and it tests the character. Like, you go in knowing you can't win it, so how do you play this out? What do you do?
The best choices you
you-
make in a
right.
situation you can't win.
right. And
right.
your choices are to leave
But-
the people or go into the neutral zone to go rescue them.
Right.
And find
So
out it's a
either
trap.
you leave the crew, the one ship to die, or you get your own crew killed.
in the
But Kirk beat it.
in the books, which are not non-canon, there's a whole book called Kobayashi Maru, and what you find out is the Kobayashi Maru is that's just one test. They're all called the Kobayashi Maru, but they test different officers doing different things. So Scotty's version, the Kobayashi Maru, went all around engineering stuff, but it was still a no-win situation with engineering, dealing with a Kobayashi Maru. And so everyone takes the test, but depending on what you do, it's
Whatever your job
is what the test
Is
reflects
what's
on.
about.
But of course, that's non-canon, but I just thought that was fun. So,
That is pretty cool.
this movie has changed for me over the years. I saw this in the theaters. I was very young, and I loved it. And being a Star Wars fan, and that's how I got my way into Star Trek. Star Trek was prior to my arrival to this planet, before I was born. And so as a kid, I liked spaceships and lasers and things like that. And so I remember seeing the trailers. I was 4.5, 5 years old when this came out. And we saw it on Bay Minette when Bay Minette still had theaters.
Wow.
Yep, we had two. Bay Minette had
More
two
than
theaters
one.
at one time.
God bless Bay Minette.
I don't remember the first time I saw this movie. I'm sure it was when it came out. I just don't remember the aspects of where and with who, but I do remember growing up. You talked about watching the original TV show, the reruns. My dad and I watched those religiously together. I grew up watching those shows, and to this day, the original series still comes on reruns, and I'll flip channels and stop and watch it. I just love it.
No.
What you may not know is
He's
that
looking at me because I will not know it.
right,
Yeah.
is that this is a direct sequel to an episode of Star Trek
It is, like from the original series.
from the original series.
Okay. Let me break this down. So this is the second movie of Star Trek.
Right.
But there's a whole series beforehand.
Right.
There's a series that ran for 3 seasons.
Thank you. That was my next question. Is how many seasons?
3.
How long
In the
between
60s.
the series and
The
when
series-
the first movie came out?
The series was in the 60s.
So the show ended in 1969,
Yeah.
and so this is 1982, so 13 years.
Okay. So did it come back just due to fans and
So-
a need?
So
But it was 15 years, which it is the truth, because when the episode was the first season, right?
yeah, first season.
So it was 15 years. There's 15 years between the episode
That it's based on.
that it's based on and the movie. And even I think Khan mentions, it's been 15 years.
I like Uncle Henry's face right now.
Well, I want to ask a question of Justina.
Yeah,
Justina, is your role here? They force you to watch movies that you don't know,
Yep. You're on
and
it so far.
then you sit there and you don't like them, and then it gives them an opportunity where they're trying to teach you what they want you to know? Because I feel like Scotty and Stephanie are lecturing you.
They are a little bit.
This is some forced lecture of you.
A little bit. That's kind of how it feels for me sometimes.
I'm so sorry.
It's usually when it's Star Trek or something I genuinely don't like that this comes out like this. Usually, sometimes we can talk about like actual filmmaker aspects of it. No. Star Trek is. I was just genuinely bored, so they just try to tell me how great it is, pretty much.
Okay, well that's,
what
I'm noticing here. It just looks like you're here to really. They want to insert their
we want
opinions
her
into
to
your
like
head.
it so bad.
They
We really want her to like
as
it.
as a non fan of the original stuff, it really is lots of people in rooms talking to each other
that you don't know and you don't know their connection. It's so difficult to keep up. But I didn't know the story really.
Did you pick up though on like the parallels between what was going on in this movie and Moby Dick?
No.
You did not at all?
No. My next question is, have you read Moby Dick?
Yes.
Okay.
You didn't see Khan as Captain Ahab chasing this whale, for no purpose. So many times his own crew was telling him, we can be free. We've got this ship. We can go anywhere we want to. Why are you trying to keep chasing Kirk?
Because he tasks me.
Because he keeps,
that way,
and I shall have him.
chasing this whale.
I think so. Let me put this in a different context for you guys. Okay. So I'm going to go with Psych because I've already brought that up. Mm-hmm. And at this point, they have 2 movies and a series. And that's like one of my favorite TV shows. So if I had you guys just watch the second movie, which is about one of the detectives who's been, he's had a stroke. So the whole movie centered around that.
Hold on. Wait. Don't say that. Don't mention anything. Let's do it.
Okay.
Because I've never seen Psych.
I've never seen Psych either.
I've never seen the TV show or anything.
So next episode, next film, let's do the second Psych film.
Okay.
What's the name of it?
Your point, were you making the point that the second Psych film would be good enough, it could stand on its own for people that had never seen Psych?
No, it was going to be kind of different. Like,
okay.
I know the relationships of the characters, so I understand when they react a certain way why they're doing that. So even... I was so taken apart from this movie because I don't know their importance. I don't know the battle that they have or the history that Khan and Kirk have. So the whole time it's just me trying to understand who's talking to who, like Spock and Kirk. I didn't realize they were such good friends until he died at the end. And then I was like, oh, he cares about him.
They were best friends.
The doctor, until the doctor said, I'm your friend, I was like, oh, that's a friend of his. There's so many things. I didn't know that the son worked with the lady. I didn't know they were related.
But on that, though, there's a scene where after Kirk gets the orders to go to Regular One, and he goes to Spock, when Spock's in his room and he's meditating or praying or whatever he's doing. And there's this whole conversation about who should take over the ship, and you don't see that there's a bond there.
100% don't remember that scene.
See, and that's my next question. What else do you do when you're watching these movies?
Okay.
I mean, you're obviously doing something else also.
Usually it's crocheting. I tend to crochet when I watch movies. I did sit in one spot, and I have a hard time sitting through movies. I did sit and watch this whole movie sitting in one spot. But I was so bored that I found myself more going, they're jumping. They're not even reacting to that properly. And then I'm like, the music's more exciting. So it was like I was focusing on too many things outside of the story because I was so frustrated with not being able to connect with the story. So you just get to that point. It's like going to a lecture for a subject you don't know, and the teacher's lecturing you, and you're like, I don't even know what you're talking. Like, it's gibberish to me, essentially. Like, you're using words, but they don't make sense. So instead, you're like, that suit looks really good on him. He's really pulling that off.
Which I find fascinating because I think out of every film in this series, if someone who's never seen Star Trek, this is the one I show them.
But you didn't show me this one first. So remember that. You showed me this other one first, and then we went back and then watched this one.
But they're separate things. They're not they're Star Trek, but they're separate things.
They're completely disconnected from each other.
Right. They don't have a real connection outside of the name of the ship and the world.
We're talking about
the world.
Well, we're talking about a crew that is 100 years later. Like the next generation is like
Here
See,
we
I
go.
I didn't know that until this moment either.
See, this is more of the lecturing and the insertion
Yeah.
of things
We're
into her
sorry.
head.
No, it's okay. Like
No,
I do
not lecturing.
appreciate it.
Oh, you
Teaching.
do?
I do appreciate it up to a point. Like I do, like when I sit down and I'll break it down. Like, all right, so when
She
did the
needs a
show
libation.
happen? Because I didn't know there was a show beforehand. I thought it was just the movies. So then it's like, well, how far apart are the movies from the show? So I really do go into that more technical aspect of it. Like, why did we have the show? I couldn't follow the story. Now that we've talked about it and I go back and watch it, it might not be as bad because I know the story.
Right.
And I know the connections. But I think, given the fact that it's the second movie after watching this series, if I knew the people from the series, the story, like, I think the movie itself wasn't all around terrible if you could follow along.
So it's an interesting question. So it's weird to ask, but how do you watch movies? Because like most movies, you don't know backstory anyway. Most films don't have a series or anything back. So is your hang up is that you know there's something that exists, and then you're
Possibly?
like there's just some stuff you should know.
But it's
This is I think this film does a really good job of telling you everything you need to know.
I don't think it does as much as you think it does. Like, if we find somebody that doesn't know Star Trek, and we just... But, I mean,
no,
I had
would-
seen something
I
before.
would
We
like to
talked
try
about it a
this
little
again
bit.
on somebody else who's not seen.
Yes.
This is our
Star
new
Trek.
experiment.
But if we were to find somebody else and not tell them anything...
Because I cannot put myself in her shoes because I have known Star Trek my entire life.
We're gonna have to go find Amish country.
Right, but I agree with her point to a degree. I think that, yes, Scotty, they do establish the friendships between McCoy and Kirk and the friendship between Kirk and Spock.
Mm-hmm.
But all the other relationships with the original cast members that there's a lot of fan service with.
Yeah.
Somebody like Justina would never pick up, and probably never pick up the asides between Spock and McCoy.
Right.
Because there were several cute moments in the movie that she probably did not think were cute because she didn't realize
Right.
the friendly rivalry between Spock and McCoy.
Where McCoy's constantly call him a blue-blooded alien.
Green-blooded.
Yeah. A green-blooded, whatever. Green-blooded alien.
Yeah,
Was it like-
I can
Like
see
when they go
how.
beam down, it's like, be careful, Jim. And he's like, Bones is like, we will.
Yes.
Yeah, those
yes,
weren't funny to me. Those moments were like, okay,
Yes.
all right, cool. But I do think that if you knew the story, that those moments would be better and you could connect more. You do hit a point where you can't connect with something for long enough that you're just like, all right, well, they'll guide me when we talk about it later. It's fine.
What I was saying in the beginning, that you know, I saw this movie early as a child, and I loved it as a child because of its lasers and space stuff. And as I got older, I loved it because it's a Moby Dick allegory, and it's wonderful. But as I'm getting older, the message of growing older, and how do you approach growing older?
Amen to that.
I am now learning in a whole different light. So watching it again for this, I mean, I had to watch it back. It's been a minute since I've seen it. Actually, the last time I'd seen it before the podcast was when you and I saw it on the big screen.
Yes.
And that was 2 years ago for its 35th anniversary.
By the way, Justina, I did weep at the death of Spock.
Oh,
so did my
Uncle
husband.
Henry.
My
Yes,
husband
I-
does too.
I wept at the death of Spock as an adult who knew that Spock was resurrected from multiple future movies and TV appearances. Still, it got me that it was that fan service element. They
Yeah.
did a beautiful job.
It's the way he dies. It's so.
But fan service isn't always
and
good.
Kirk's
That's true.
reaction
For
and
something.
Kirk's reaction to his death is just heartbreaking.
It was
and
well
at the
done.
end, it's like I'm getting a little choked up now. At the end, when he's giving his eulogy, and he said that out of all the
species
he's run, he's run across in the universe, that he was the most human, and it's like, oh my god.
Right. I'm sorry. I've got another question for the both of you.
Sure.
And I don't know much about Justina's background, so I don't know if this would apply to her or not. But I know that two of you very involved with theater.
Mm-hmm.
Just sushi.
Oh, okay. Well, then, was there no enjoyment from any of you of just watching the acting with Ricardo Montalban and William Shatner?
Oh,
Is that not
absolutely.
fun to see these guys chew? I mean, the scenery is they're just chewing huge chunks out of it.
I love it. Ricardo
Is that con?
Yeah.
William Shatner's acting is unique. He has a very unique style of acting.
Right.
And a lot
Effective.
of times, a lot of times it can all, especially in the original series, it was almost comical the way he would overact a lot of stuff. But there was such real emotion from him in this movie that it was just, I mean, like you could feel his pain, you could feel his agitation, you could feel his anger watching him on the screen. And like you said, I think this is the best Kirk performance. And Ricardo Montalban is an amazing actor anyway, and watching him is a thrill in anything I've ever seen him in.
So while filming, here's an interesting fact: William Shatner and Ricardo Montalban never acted together.
I figured that they were never in, they were not in a room together.
They're never in the same room together. Which is, I think, is fascinating for a film to never have your main hero and your main villain not meet. They don't.
But that kind of ties into the story too of them not ever being able to connect and the frustration of it.
Right. Which is perfect. And so, they are both giving these amazing performances, but they're not giving it to each other, which is even as someone who's acted, I mean, it's amazingly tough to do all these dialogue scenes, but as monologues, and then hopefully they will cut together, and they do so beautifully. During the filming of this, Nicholas Meyer had to keep both Shatner and Ricardo Montalban to act smaller than they were. So Montalban originally when they were shooting on the Ceti Alpha V set, he was very big about everything. Everything was GC, and so Meyer was like, you have to understand this is a madman. He's gone crazy, but he doesn't want anyone to know he's crazy. So be smaller, and then when you do crazier moments, go big then. And so we had to bring him back down on that. The same way for Shatner in the scene where they're lowering the shields of the Reliant, and we had he was reading those lines way too big, and so they had to bring him back down on that. But it worked out great. One of my favorite Shatner lines in that is after that battle scene, and they've damaged the Reliant, and there's that moment of where he's triumphant. He goes, I did nothing. I got caught with my britches down. And the way he delivers that is just so, he's happy that they're getting out of it, but he knows how much danger they're in. And for someone who's like him, it's a fake movie set, and he's just pulling it off. It's just amazing to me.
Well, you talked about overacting comically.
Right.
That the original series, they're literally with painted styrofoam. They're pretending they're on another planet with painted styrofoam.
Exactly.
So they're all they've got is being able to do stuff like that.
Right. And it worked. It worked for that era, because a lot of TV back then was kind of over the top. So it worked. But that's the Kirk I grew up with was the one that overacted, and So, to see him actually perform.
But Scotty, but you just talked about William Shatner. But what about Ricardo Montalban? Because every time I watch it, I like him better each time I watch it.
He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing. I love like when we were talking about when Joaquin comes up to him and says, "Hey, look, we've got a ship. We don't need Kirk. We can do whatever we want. You promised us 200 years ago we would have our own place. This is our chance to have our own place. No, I have to have Kirk because he tasks me.
Right.
He tasks me, and I shall have him. And so they've pledged this fealty to him 200 years ago, so they're going to go along with him. But you can see that they're not on board.
They're like, why are we doing this? We can escape,
We have escaped.
We've escaped. We have a ship.
We can go wherever we want. And it's like, no, we have to kill Kirk first. And so he's so good. Even his reveal, just slowly pulling off those gloves of that suit and then removing his helmet and just Chekhov, God, and just that just reverence, and it's just
which, by the way, Chekhov was not even in the episode of.
He did show up to season 2.
I know.
Justina, what did you think about them putting caterpillars in people's heads and their ears?
Oh, that was disgusting.
Okay, so you did see that part while you were crocheting.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I can do a lot while I crochet. At first he caught that thing, and I didn't know where he was going with it, and then he pulled something off its back, and I was like, oh, gross. And then he put it in a dish, and I was like, oh, he got 2 of them, and there's 2 people. So I really thought he was going to, like, put their head to the side and just, like, drop it, and I was bracing for it. But then he put it in the helmet. I was like, that's much better.
Oh, but then you
Theatrically, that's much better, too, because you can direct that a lot easier, too. You're like, it's in the helmet. Here it goes.
Fun fact about the suits, they were not, they didn't have air when they were filming them, so they had radios inside to let everyone know when they got too hot or they couldn't breathe. So they stopped filming, let them breathe, put the helmet back on them. So.
That's interesting, being a suit that's probably supposed to
while we're
provide
talking,
hair.
go ahead and let's get to the libation. Let's talk about that. And
Oh, okay. I'm going to take off my earphones for a minute while I gather my supplies.
all right. So there's a sequel to this.
Okay. Are we watching that, too?
No, we're not going to watch it. Well, maybe eventually. I don't know.
He's like, no, we're not going to watch it.
They want to lecture you on that.
They
so
do.
I'm sure that,
I really appreciate you, Uncle Henry. You can come back anytime you want to.
Well, no, it just seems, it's made me wonder if you're a masochist, if you participate in order to be tortured, if you're enjoying being tortured by these films.
It's just kind of the thing. So my story is that my dad actually collected movies. He would go out and buy all the new movies every Tuesday when I was a kid. All of them.
The story makes me sad.
And so I grew up in a very difficult childhood. My parents were very strict, but when it came to movies, he had a room of bookshelves, and it was VHSs for a while, and they'd be like triple layered and alphabetized, and it doesn't matter what the genre was, they were alphabetized, so you had to know what letter you wanted to watch, not what movie. We were not allowed to watch movies, because if we put a movie on, we were not doing something that we could have been doing. And honestly, that was reflected more with me than my younger siblings, which I've been thinking about a lot lately, because I was the one that pretty much raised them. So it was always like, you have something better to do. And then like the last three, I don't think had that interpretation, that growing up. So anyway, I never watched movies. And then I moved almost once or twice a year from states. So I went from Washington State to Minnesota to Idaho to somewhere else in Idaho to Alabama to somewhere else in Alabama. So I was constantly moving. So even my cultural experience, like I missed things in my education because you learn things different in different states. So there were some things I learned like 4 times, and then some things I didn't learn about at all. So it'll come up nowadays, something, I can't even give you an example right now, but something will come up and I'm like, I don't even know anything about that because I just missed it in my education. So then that ties into, you don't really have that group of friends you hang out with, so you don't have people that just talk about movies. You don't get to watch them. I eventually got a radio, so I wasn't even, like, current on music. I was very sheltered. So it kind of became a thing. My dad probably has every single movie we've done so far. He probably owns them all.
I'm not understanding why the movies were bought, but you didn't watch them.
Oh, he bought them for himself. That was his thing.
So he watched them, but he didn't let his family watch them.
Half of his movies were not opened. It was very much like a hobby. Like, he enjoyed collecting movies. They watched movies every night. They would watch a movie at dinner. We sat at the table in the kitchen. We were not allowed to watch the movies.
Okay, this is really weird.
It's sad. When I hear the story, I just want to cry. And just hold
there's
you.
a lot that ties into that, but that's pretty much how this got started. Is they were doing the Bros, Booze, and Movies, and I had sat in on something. It was Prince of Darkness, so no one needs to see that anyway. It's fine. But then it kind of became this. I missed out on a lot of cult, traditional classics that most people have just seen at some point, like Goonies. I haven't seen Goonies.
Neither have I.
Oh. Best friends. But there's a lot of stuff like that I have not seen. So I missed out on a lot of those. So now when we go back and watch it, even if it was in my generational time, it's me still watching it as an adult from a time that I wasn't watching movies. So that's kind of my the She Who Knows No Movies is quite literal. I've seen more TV shows, I think, than I have actually seen movies.
All right, I am now in your corner.
Thank you, buddy.
I'm firmly in her corner.
We're
now.
always in her corner. We like showing her movies. That's fun for us.
At times it does feel lectury, but sometimes it's interesting, and it does allow me to watch movies I hadn't seen that I probably should, and now I just don't have time to go pick. Like we watched the original Chucky, and then we watched the new Chucky.
You didn't need to see that.
What is it?
Why did you make her watch those, Scotty?
Child's Play. I knew it was Child
something.
something.
Need to see that.
I don't even know Child's Play was connected to Chucky.
Right.
I didn't even know those were the same things. And Chucky showed up, and I was like, "Why is Chucky in this movie?" It's like it's a Chucky movie.
Because it's his movie.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So I come across kind of as an idiot on this podcast.
No,
I'm not
I
gonna
don't
lie.
think
A little
so.
bit. I think I do.
I don't think you're ever.
I'm just
inexperienced.
culturally inexperienced. So
That's why we have in the description someone who's never seen them.
literally has just never seen them.
Okay.
Basically, you were raised Amish. Oh, is the libation done?
They're very
Libation
pretty,
is
and
done.
they have one of my favorite beers in them, so I'm excited about that.
So, of course, I was looking up a Romulan ale recipe because that is what McCoy gifts Kirk for his
Is this
birthday.
blood? This is his
This-
blood.
No.
Spock's blood? It's blue-green.
Yeah, because the
Romulan
blue
ale.
moon has like a color to it. So, but when looking, of course, I go online and I'm looking for different Romulan ale recipes, and there are several out there. Tons of different ones, and almost all of them have grain alcohol in it. And I almost killed Scotty that one time,
Yeah.
so I decided I would be nice. But I did
go back
find
to
this
the,
one.
Return to Oz episode.
Talking
Yeah,
about
Return to
the
Oz.
witch's bucket?
Yeah. So
was bad.
I've come across this. Of course, Romulan ale is supposed to be an ale, and I came across this recipe where they do use 3 ounces of the blue curacao,
Yeah, curacao.
curacao, and top it off with the blue moon, because the blue curacao does have an orange flavor to it anyway, and the blue moon, of course, does have the orange peel. So that is what we are drinking
I'm excited.
today.
Oh,
This is
very pretty.
actually, and it does have like a little bit of a greenish color, which is fine.
So,
It'll be
fun
fine.
fact, there was used to be a Star Trek exhibit in Las Vegas called the Star Trek Experience, and you could actually buy Romulan ale in bottles.
Yeah, I mean,
And I have one.
that's really cool.
I got to bring it for the office. I need to go grab it out of storage.
I
But,
did
yeah.
look in the book. Scotty gifted my husband with a Star Trek cookbook, and I did look in there for a recipe, but they.
Oh, Henry's
I know.
expression is
Does it have
priceless.
larva in it?
No, well, see, they have
They're Ceti eels.
they have like they have sections from each of the Star Trek crews throughout the years, but one of them that they have is Quark's Bar from Deep Space Nine, and they list everything they used to make these particular drinks.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's what they actually used on set, which was all non-alcoholic, and so I was very disappointed.
Not as cool.
I could
Not
not
as cool.
get a actual recipe because what they used for the Romulan ale on Quark's Bar was blue Gatorade or Powerade. So not very exciting.
So, let's,
So anyway,
cheers.
cheers.
Cheers. Well, that's tasty.
It's not that bad.
No, it's not bad. It's surprising. I can really taste the orange in it.
Yeah. Well, you're supposed to.
Right.
All right.
Orange has a kick to it.
Here, Justina, when you finish that.
Yeah, I'll take
there's extras.
So I found some Apocrypha. Thank you again for our drink, our lovely Lady of
Yeah.
Libations.
So to Kirk's birthday. Happy birthday,
Happy
Kirk.
birthday.
Happy
Oh,
birthday,
yes, happy
Kirk.
birthday.
Yes.
Nice glasses.
The Apocrypha. So the original subtitle of this was Star Trek: The Genesis Project. Then it was changed to Star Trek II: The Undiscovered Country. And then it was changed to The Vengeance of Khan. The last one was discarded because of Star Wars Episode 6: Return of the Jedi. They were like, we can't have that. So they
Star Wars always getting in the way
basically.
of the Trekkies. That's what they're
s-
called, right?
Yeah.
Trickers, Trekkies.
Trekkies.
But so they settled on Wrath of Khan. Star Trek 6 would eventually be called The Undiscovered Country.
I like the Wrath of Khan.
I do too.
Undiscovered Country is one of my favorites.
Also directed by Nicholas Meyer.
It has a Hamlet feel to it.
That's Nicholas Meyer. That's
It's great.
his whole thing is like the reason why this movie exists because he likes
Classic theater.
No, he likes
classic literature.
Horatio Hornblower. He just likes sailing ships, and so he goes. They won't give me money to make a Horatio Hornblower movie, but they'll give me a movie. They give me money to make Star Trek, so he made it. Moby Dick meets Horatio Hornblower. So, draft of the script had Khan defeating Admiral Kirk in a sword fight.
Okay.
They have swords?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Don't look at me like that, Uncle Henry.
Well, no, I'm trying to. I can't remember a lot of sword fighting.
Sulu.
Sulu
used
had the
to
sword when he-
I
Nick of
remember
Time.
that. Yeah.
I didn't see anybody with like
Yeah.
a
Original
sheath,
series.
like a
they mostly
sheath?
had them.
Sheath?
Yeah.
Sheath.
Klingons use the batlets. Which
Is that language that they threw down in the middle of this movie?
No, that was Vulcan. That Spock and
Yeah, they were talking.
in Vulcan.
I couldn't understand. I assumed it was Klingon. I don't know that language.
So it's either English or Klingon, right?
That's it.
It was
No,
actually,
every other.
that was Vulcan.
I like it. One rejected idea for the second Star Trek movie involved a scientist belonging to a humanoid race on a largely water-covered planet investigating a water creature called a Wafida.
Wafida.
Yeah, a race of plesiosaur-like humanoids who lived entirely in water. It turns out that the Wafida are actually a later stage of the terrestrial humanoid life cycle, and so it was like, this is how human life started, but that was discarded. The script originally called for Dr. McCoy to say, "He's dead, Jim," at Spock's death.
Oh my God! I'm glad they didn't do
But
that.
DeForest Kelley feared that the line would draw intentional laughs and insisted it being changed in the film. It's Scotty who says, "Sir, he's already dead." Leonard Nimoy did not know about the final shot of Spock's coffin on the surface of the Genesis planet. He first saw this at the premiere.
Oh my
Is that
gosh!
the dude that wanted it so that he was not in it?
Yeah.
He's Spock.
Yeah, Spock.
So they showed it, and he was like, "No, I said I was dead."
And he said that his first thought was, "I'm going to be getting a call from Paramount," which he did.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to talk about this for a second. There is a director's cut. We watched the theatrical cut. There's a director's cut of this film, and there's a cut called the ABC television cut. They all have different footage.
What? I
Some
almost watched the director's cut.
Some of it has crossover. But, so, if you recall, after the battle with the Reliant, they're going to check out their damage and see what's going on, and they turn, and there's Scotty. He's got the cadet in his hand that's all burned up.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Right.
my first thought was, why didn't he just take him to sick bay? But I've always thought,
Exactly.
it's like, just take him to, why, the bridge is not, I don't know why, and no one's ever answered this.
He needed them to see how bad it was, Scotty.
And so you see, and you see at the end of the, when he dies, Scotty's very upset about it. And so you think
Isn't that the kid from Witch Mountain?
it may be, I'm not sure.
I think that was the kid.
Looks
from
like
Witch
him.
Mountain.
But and so Scotty is visually upset about this, and you're thinking, well, that's a teacher to a student. Not so. In deleted scenes from the original release, Scotty explains that Peter Preston, the young man who died, is his nephew.
Oh.
And
I would take him to the bridge, too.
And so there are two scenes. There, one when Admiral Kirk's during the inspection, Kirk and Preston have a conversation about how cool the Enterprise is, and you're like, it's the best starship in the fleet, sir, and all that kind of stuff. And then there's, after he dies, there's a Kirk consoles him and says, he's going to get whoever did this, Khan, who did this.
All right, so is that in the director's cut or the ABC?
It's in both versions.
Okay.
Wow, I totally missed that.
That was like the last
That's
movie we
so
watched where they took out
though.
so many storylines that I think
I
added
didn't
to
know
the
there
story.
was an ABC cut. I'd heard about how the first Star Trek movie had a much longer version for television.
So,
God,
but
that
I didn't
movie
hear
was
about
awful.
this having an
there's
ABC cut.
There's a history. Okay, so for those who are younger than us may not know, a long time ago, there was 3 networks, and the 3 networks would show like Sunday or Monday night movies.
Talking about ABC, NBC, Fox.
CBS.
Fox was before sex, so CBS was, Fox became later.
Did really well, though.
But
You
you
did pretty
did.
good.
Thank
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Thanks.
75%. I'm proud of you.
You're so cute. You're so cute.
It's not an A.
I remember the first time I got cable.
So, but they would show first run movies, because there was no cable. Cable was expensive and couldn't a lot of people get it. But they had to edit it for commercials and content and stuff. So what they would do is, to make things stretch out, they would go and find deleted scenes. Halloween is most famous for this because they knew they were getting a television cut. So while they were filming Halloween 2, they added scenes for the TV cut for NBC. Aliens, which we just watched last week, has scenes that they used for the CBS cut when it first aired. And this movie, same way, they found deleted scenes they could put.
Okay.
And so that's
Now,
to stretch out time.
Did they do that with any of the Superman films?
Most likely, probably, because Superman 1 and 2 were both filmed at the same time, with Donner directing it, and then they fired Donner for the second one. We're being rained on by...
Thanks, friend.
What was that?
1 foot in the grave is
Oh,
John.
that's awesome. You have a gift now, Uncle Henry.
Oh, well, thank you.
That's
It's like Mardi Gras here in Mobile.
I suddenly felt it was like the ceiling.
I just want to say that that's our friend John, who makes amazing, incredible props.
He's going to be a guest on us in October.
I mean, like, if you ever need a prop made, he is the man.
So, did films regularly do that? Was there a time in which they just actively shot extra footage for TV?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, Halloween's a rarity.
If you were a filmmaker back then, would you have done that?
Probably. Depends on how much money I got paid. It usually just comes down to how much money. NBC paid a lot of money to show Halloween because it was such a popular film. So NBC paid a lot of money. So with that money, they were like, we can just shoot some extra things while we're making the sequel. Because they were basically using the same sets.
Cool.
Can I just say something that is not related to Star Trek at all?
Sure.
Uncle Henry
I'm
says
sitting
no.
here looking at Uncle Henry. No, it's. I love your granny button. I love your granny button.
Thank you.
Is that just some random granny, or is that your granny?
No,
Well,
that's from the Beverly Hillbillies.
Oh, haven't seen that. Sorry.
Well, I'm not going to lecture you about why you should watch it.
He's seriously my favorite guest we've had so far.
I'm not going to try to force
So we
it
love
into
Chris.
your brain.
Thank
Uncle
you, Uncle
Henry's great.
Henry.
I would just tell you that if you're ever, they're all on YouTube, and they still hold up quite well.
They're funny. They're so funny. You got to watch the
They're
Beverly
on
Hillbillies.
YouTube?
Yeah.
Yes, they're all on
Okay.
YouTube.
I mean, you don't have
I-
to, but it's funny.
I will start it, and I will let you know.
Granny's a hoot.
I'll reach out.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Before we get into Bart here,
Here, I can share.
my last bit of apocrypha is, so when they're fixing to do the inspection, and Scotty says that the doctor got him pulled him out of a wee bout, and they're like, a wee bout of what? And he says, shore leave. That's in reference to James Doohan had a heart attack the year before.
Who's that? Which one?
Scotty.
Scotty.
Oh.
And so Scotty had a heart attack the year before, and so they were taking light of that. Oh, sorry. Last bit. Actually, no. This would be trivia. So, try some fun stuff for trivia.
And when you're done, I have another question for Uncle Henry
Go ahead,
that is
go
about
ahead.
Star Trek. Okay, let me ask you this: Did you see the newest Star Trek movies with the whole new cast?
Yes.
And
Of course.
how do you feel that they? How do you think they did with their casting?
I thought it was phenomenal. I've always thought, people always have through the years have asked the question, why was Star Trek so popular? Why did it catch on? And there were all these lofty ideas about the future being bright, and I always attributed it to the casting, the original crew. I thought they did such a phenomenal job casting Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner, and then DeForest Kelley. I thought they did a great job casting the new movies. At the end of the first new Star Trek, with the young actors, I wanted it to keep going.
Mhm.
I did not
I
want
did
to
too.
get up and leave. I wanted there to be more adventure for me on the
I
screen.
did too. I thought that they did an excellent job recapturing the essence of their characters without mimicking.
Exactly,
And
yes.
and I thought it was really good.
The Spock was like being hit by lightning twice. I mean,
Yeah,
Right.
Zachary Quinto was
and I
amazing.
love the.
He was in
It
Heroes.
wasn't.
He was.
He was. It wasn't the first. Which was it? The second movie when Leonard Nimoy is in the movie with
First
him.
one.
First
First
was
one.
the first one when they're together. Okay, I love the interaction between the two of them. It was just fantastic.
And Leonard is the original Spock.
Yes.
I'm getting these names down.
Look at you.
I know. I won't be able to throw it down tomorrow, but if you say it, I'll recognize.
Yeah.
So, question for the floor here. So, Ricardo Montalban's fantastic chest in this film,
Oh, this was funny.
real or not?
It's real.
Okay, first of all, is that the doctor?
No, that's Khan.
Khan's chest.
Oh.
The Khan's chest, and it is
Oh.
real.
Okay.
Because I know
I
the
assumed
story.
real. I never once thought it was fake.
I never once thought it was fake. Did you ever think it was fake?
No.
I
But
didn't-
there were those who thought it was a chest plate.
chest plate. Now,
Why? Does it stick out more than his body? I'm so curious now.
Because
They didn't expect him to be that built at his age.
Well, he was a bodybuilder all his life. The thing is that realistically, Khan above his neck looks a lot different than below his neck. He looks like a lot older than his chest is, and so I can see where you think there's some trickery, but it's all him.
Reminds me of Bo.
Also, at the time this movie was made, Ricardo Montalban was known for being on Fantasy Island.
He was Mr. Rourke.
Mr. Rourke. So the host of Fantasy Island, where he was very different. He was a gentleman. He wore a white suit, and he was a gentleman, and he hosted people on his fantasy island where where dreams can come true, good or bad.
Yeah, it's
which is also a great show from back in the day, but didn't look anything like Khan.
What else has he been in?
Tons of stuff.
Lots of 50s, 60s movies.
TV shows. I think other Conquest and Planet of the Apes and Conquest and Battle. He's in the last two, I think.
I'm sure he also portrayed Native Americans.
Yes, he did.
Some cultural appropriation.
Well,
there?
there's cultural appropriation in this too, because Khan is supposed to be from India.
Oh, but he's not. He's Mexican. But he's not like Mexican. His actual original family came from Spain. That's why he looks different than most Mexicans. He's actually more Spanish than Mexican.
So
but he is.
a little background for the episode that happened that led into this. So in the world of Star Trek, there is a World War III that happens in the 90s. And it's caused by these supermen called they were genetically created to lead, and they all had these different countries, and they all fought each other. And Khan, toward the end of the eugenics war, the World War III, is in charge of like Asia, India, and the Middle East. He's got he owns like a quarter of the planet.
Kind of like Genghis Khan.
Right, and so they overthrow him, and he escapes with his 72 of his followers into space on a ship called the Botany Bay. The Enterprise finds the Botany Bay nearly 200 years later. They wake up Khan. Khan eventually tries to overthrow the Enterprise, and then they just were like, well, we'll just exile you to this planet.
So that's the history of Khan.
Yeah,
right.
And it was Ricardo Montalban in the original.
Yeah, he reprises his role.
A much younger Ricardo Montalban, but
and they kick him to his planet, and then they forget about him, and then Ceti Alpha V explodes, and 5 becomes a barren waste.
And you hear a lot, you learn a lot about the World War III during the Next Generation because of a character called Q that loves to remind the crew of the Enterprise how humans are terrible, and this is why, because of the World War III, and it's crazy.
If you recall, when we watched First Contact,
I was just thinking about First Contact.
They were, they're living in those camps and stuff.
Yeah,
that's post World War III. They're building into what they would become.
Interesting.
So those camps and stuff they were living in is society trying to rebuild itself.
Isn't First Contact? Doesn't the Enterprise get blown up at the end of that, or no?
Enterprise has been blown up several times.
Okay,
yeah, but not in that one.
It's like the Death Star.
Not
keeps coming back.
Well, no, they rebuild and rename. It was like a naval ship. So I mean, literally, that's the Navy for space, and so they'll rebuild it and then rename that ship the Enterprise.
Okay, so they don't give it a new name. It's just still the Enterprise. It's not the same ship though. It's been rebuilt.
Right, it's been rebuilt several times. So is it always a different? It's like a different ship, but yes. The only time you don't have an Enterprise, well, there's a couple of times you don't have it in Voyager. You don't have it in Deep Space Nine. So
it's in the pilot.
It's in the pilot, but it's not like the focus.
Right.
So. I have a question for Uncle Henry.
Sure.
Okay.
How do you feel the movies relate to the TV show? Having had enjoyed the show so much, do you think the movies uphold what the TV show started?
Most of them do. Some of the movies are some movies are better than others. So you'd have to go movie by movie.
Oh, I cannot do that.
The first,
I understand
you thought this was boring. The first movie is like watching paint dry.
It's a little slow.
It's a lot of talking in rooms with nothing happening.
So do you ever wish that instead of doing multiple movies, they would have just started the show back up?
No. In that era when they were in the 80s when they were making the movies, special effects became more important than ever before, but they were also more expensive, and you never would have been able to afford to do that in a weekly series. Now you can
TV show.
because they have all the new technology.
Right, but not in the 80s.
So
not in the 80s.
That's a good point to make.
So let's talk about this for just a sec because it's part of history and part of the trivia. But Star Trek, Paramount was wanting to do a network, like a television network in the 70s. They were going to make the fourth network. And so they were going to launch it with Star Trek. That's going to be one of their title shows. And so they got Roddenberry back, and they were going to make this thing called Star Trek Phase 2. And things happened, and Paramount wasn't able to do the network, and so they abandoned the project. Star Wars comes out. Star Wars is a huge hit. No one saw it coming. I mean, like filming Star Wars, no one knew this was going to be. They thought it was going to be a throwaway children's movie, not a cultural icon that it became. So, like when those things happen, studios go, okay, what do we have like a Star Wars? And Paramount had Star Trek, and so they rolled in what they were using for Star Trek Phase 2 to make the motion picture, and so. Because of that, it made the budget balloon because they added the budget from what they had already used to the budget of the first film. So the budget of the first film was between $45 and $40 million. It did okay. It didn't do great, but it did okay. It made its money back, but it didn't do great. And so they were like, it made enough money to do a sequel, but they had to do it much, much cheaper. What do you think the budget was for this film?
20,000 or 20 million. I mean.
This film?
This film, 20 million. What you got?
Gosh, 82.
First movie was $45 million in 70s money.
That's what I'm saying. So, 60.
60.
I'm more along Justina's lines. I'd say 30 million.
$10 million was the budget.
Really?
They managed to finagle an extra $1 million, so this movie was made for $11 million.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
That would explain why the big fight scene. He goes, "Commit." That's one of my favorite parts of that whole movie.
That's not that bad though. I mean, they did a great job.
Well, and it also explains why they made so much money off that. That tells them they need to keep making those movies.
Exactly. And the thing is that they used a lot of stuff already shot for the first film. All the Enterprise stuff that's like in Docking Bay and all that stuff, and all the shots of the Enterprise by itself was already seen in the last movie. They just reused it.
Crazy.
And showed different angles of it, but it's the same. It's the same shots.
I have a question for everybody except for you because I don't think you were born.
Was it before 89? I wasn't.
No, it was 90, so you still would not know this.
As an infant, how would you feel about
it was not 90. It was like 91. Do you remember?
I toddler, I had thoughts.
Where you were when you found out Gene Roddenberry had died?
Oh gosh, no, I'm out.
Let me answer that by saying not at all.
No,
I don't remember that
neither.
at all.
No.
I can tell you exactly what I was doing. I was a student at South, getting my degree in political science. I was on my way to class, and on my way to class, someone had stopped me and told me, a friend of mine, that Gene Roddenberry had died.
And that is
the writer,
the guy who created
Star Trek. And I remember not making it to class because I was crying so hard.
No,
because of the impact that, I mean, this is something that was a part of my childhood. My whole life was Star Trek with my dad. I mean, I love Star Wars too, don't get me wrong, but this was something that I felt completely impacted my life. And the only other time that has happened to me where I felt like devastated was when Stan Lee died.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just crazy, but I remember exactly where I was the moment I was told that Gene Roddenberry
He died right before the premiere of Star Trek 6.
Yeah.
I remember that, but I don't remember.
Scotty, one quick interjection. You mentioned that after the shocking success of Star Wars, that the studios were looking for anything Star Wars-like to get out. I remember going to the movie theaters in Mobile and watching Battlestar Galactica.
Yes!
The TV pilot of Battlestar Galactica that had the same special effects people that worked on their spaceships. They put it in theaters because people wanted to see the special effects. And so I remember seeing the TV pilot of Battlestar Galactica. I saw it on TV and then went and saw it in the movie theater.
Yeah.
Right.
I love Battlestar Galactica.
Did you ever see Battle Across the Stars? Roger Corman with John Boy and
No, I've never seen that.
So that's a Star Wars clone that Roger Corman made before this movie.
And he made it on a zero budget,
right,
I'm sure.
Right, but they have the same composer, but that movie didn't do so well, so he used a lot of the same music in this film. He just copy paste, and so he did.
Great composer, by the way.
James Horner, who did the Alien soundtrack from the last movie.
Oh, okay, really good.
A couple more things before we move on. How about Khan's people? So Khan's people, meaning the actors playing Khan's henchmen, were Chippendale dancers.
Oh, that makes sense.
They were in good shape, so
Yeah.
they need someone.
Never knew that.
So,
They
They're
need
on a
somebody-
tight budget.
They needed somebody who looked superior.
so in movies, if you have a speaking line or a couple speaking lines, you get paid more, and
Right.
you usually get a character name and your credits in the film. This is not so for Khan's right hand man, Joaquin.
Are you serious, Joaquin? Are you serious?
Right. Who's played by the great Judson Scott, who's been in a lot of sci-fi
Yeah, he's
stuff.
been in a lot of stuff.
A lot of TV, a lot. And so he doesn't have a screen credit because of his agent, because his agent thought that he could negotiate for a higher percentage and did not get it, so they didn't credit him at all.
That's terrible.
I would have fired that agent. Bye. Kick rocks.
Kirstie Alley's character's Savick was originally written as a Romulan, half Vulcan, half Romulan.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
thought she did. She did such a good job in this movie, and of course in the next movie as well. I was really impressed with her performance, and I love Kirstie Alley. Of course she was popular on Cheers.
Yeah, this is right before Cheers.
Yeah, right before Cheers.
This is the one that failed the...
Kobe. She didn't fail it.
Well, because no one could win.
I just heard an interview with her where
yeah.
she talked about this, and she said that after her audition, I think her mother died in a horrible car accident.
Oh gosh, it's terrible.
And her father was in the accident and was in the hospital clinging to life, and they waited for her. Even though she was an unknown, instead of recasting the role,
Right.
they waited on her to come back to film the movie.
That's awesome.
And I think
That
she's
is awesome.
Which is
she's perfect
unusual
at
for
it.
Star Trek.
Well, she was.
Star Trek, because they usually screw over people.
She
No
was.
offense.
She was an unknown. She had not been in a movie.
No, this was her debut.
Her
film
audition
debut.
must have been pretty great.
She was good. She made a great Savick.
Since we're on Savick and some stuff, this is for you when you're talking about the other language you thought was Klingon, which was Vulcan. Leonard Nimoy and Kirstie Alley actually spoke English in that in that scene, and they just reversed the sound.
Oh, that's crazy.
And so that's.
Do they do
Vulcan.
that with all Vulcan?
No, they just did it for this movie.
Klingon is actual language,
Yeah,
and
they-
it's actually a recognized language now that you can learn, which is kind of crazy.
Do any of you three know Klingon?
I know a couple of words.
I know a few words, but not. There are people that
You're
know
my
it.
favorite.
No,
Okay, you
look,
too.
that's a sign that you've gone too far.
You've gone too far. All right, Scotty and Stephanie, throw it
If
down.
you've learned, you should be, as you mentioned that you crochet. Do you learn a language that no one really speaks, or do you learn a skill in life that can help something? You should learn to do something like crochet rather than learn Klingon. No offense to the Klingon listeners out there.
Uncle Henry's very busy. He doesn't have time.
He's got two
There's
dogs.
there's a lot of
That's
other
fair.
stuff to learn.
He's got two
There is.
dogs, and they're very
I've
busy
never
dogs.
tried to learn Klingon. I've picked up words from watching the movies, and I know what these words mean. There are people that actually learn the language, and I'm with Uncle Henry on this. Why? Who are you gonna converse with?
Trekkies.
Everyone needs a hobby, Stephanie.
Everyone does need a
Everyone
hobby.
needs a
That might be their relief.
My second
Crochet.
language is
Our
German.
hobby is this podcast.
My second language is German, and I feel I have far more people to speak German with than I do
You do.
Klingons.
But I would like to know the words that you guys know.
Yeah,
Kapla?
Scotty,
Kapla.
talk Klingon.
Okay, what is
I
kablak?
can't- Kapla means
Kapla.
means success.
Oh, it sounds like kabloo, like failure. So that's the
Kapla
opposite.
means, so every time if you're at a convention, you see a Klingon dressed up, you just yell Kapla. And so there's that.
Kapla.
I do love the Klingons. I just don't.
I
wanna
do
learn their
too.
language.
I like their whole culture, the whole warrior kind of mentality and the honor system that they go by, and I like their weapons. I think they're really cool.
So
I like the fact they like to drink a lot.
So in this film, we celebrate Admiral Kirk's birthday. Which birthday is it?
Oh, I don't know what his actual birthday
Oh,
is.
I want to guess.
That's how old do you think he is in this
Okay,
movie?
it's been
Not Shatner.
it's
but
been
Jack.
15
Oh, like
years.
which birthday?
Like the birthday in the movie.
In the movie. So I feel like if it's been 15 years since the episode is based on,
I'm gonna
you've
say
got to be at least a certain age.
I'm
to
gonna
be
say
like,
45 is my
hold on,
guess.
calm down.
That's my guess. 45 is my guess.
I'm gonna say 49.
49, 45, Uncle Henry.
Is it mentioned in the movie?
It is not.
It is not.
My guess would be 50.
You're the closest. It is his 52nd birthday.
Wow.
Did you really just one up me, Uncle Henry, right now? Just
I'm
Price,
sorry.
Price is right.
Price is right.
Well,
I was really thinking more about, like, they make more in the future. How long are you allowed to do this before you have to retire?
it's a good question.
So they figured this out because they know the start date of this film, and someone went back and did when they coalesced star dates with the actual dates. Someone went back and figured out he was.
What is his birthday?
It's in March. This movie happens in March. I don't have the date itself, but this movie happens in March
Okay.
because of the star dates.
Nice.
I don't know star dates, but I thought that was fun.
Did he know what birthday he was celebrating when he made the movie?
Probably not.
Probably not.
It's your birthday. How old am I? Doesn't matter. Continue.
Kirstie Alley would often go home and to her house in her Vulcaneers and sleep in them.
Oh God, that's crazy.
I wonder how long it would take to get those on, though.
It's probably just like latex glue or something.
Back in the 70s?
So you remember in the film where Saavik is quoting regulations to the Admiral, and
Yes.
and Spock says that he's aware of the regulations. According to naval and presumably also Starfleet regulations, quoting regulations to a senior officer is considered an act of insubordination. So until she was later ordered to do so by Admiral Kirk, Captain Spock was well within his rights to admonish Saavik for trying to quote a general order to Kirk.
I have a
I didn't know
question
that.
about that. So, throughout the movie, they refer to her as Mr. Saavik. You know, they refer to women as Mr. Correct me if I'm wrong. On Voyager, did they say yes, sir, to the captain?
Sometimes, but they address this in DS9.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking is because we have a friend, Shannon, who was in the Navy,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked her. I said, "Is that traditional Navy where they address women with kind of male titles?" And she said no, that she never knew of anything like that. So is that British Navy?
So command officers are in both the British and the United States Navy. Officers, like command officers, are usually, if they're in command of a ship, they're referred to as by sir or Mr.
Okay.
And so regardless of gender.
Okay, I was wondering where that came from. Maybe she wasn't an officer, obviously.
Is that still active today?
But she's learning to be a command officer, so she's in the command structure. So
right. So okay.
she's probably the highest ranking cadet they had.
I see.
Honestly.
Okay. I don't know. I guess so. That is. I think it's kind of cool.
She had to be. They kept giving her the con,
Right.
so she had to have some gravitas there.
Last bit of trivia for everyone. Scotty is only pretending to play the bagpipes in the scene where he's playing Amazing Grace. His fingering is all wrong.
I didn't think Scotty knew how to play bagpipes.
I didn't think that either.
But just for everyone to know. So let's finish this up. So I will tell you what this movie did domestically. I want you to guess how it did on this first weekend, how much money it made. Domestically, it grossed overall $70,912,000, give or take some change.
Jesus.
Opening weekend,
15 million.
which was June 4th.
That was what it grossed the opening weekend, 7-8 million?
No,
domestically.
Oh, completely?
Completely, yeah.
I would say 15 million.
15 million.
21.
21.
27.
27. Justina, you're very close.
Ooh.
Opening weekend was 14,347,221.
I figured it was.
And the thunder rolls.
Oh,
I
there's
figured
four.
it was just enough above how much they budgeted in the
Fun.
first weekend.
So,
Nice.
how do you think it did its opening weekend in the top five? I will say it's.
This was in 1982.
1982, the opening weekend. It was in the top 5.
4.
2.
1.
Correct. It was number 1.
Nice.
Can you name me any of the other 4?
No, I'm out.
No, I can't. In 82?
82.
Golly. I was 10 in 82, by the way.
Smokey and the Bandit 2.
1977. So no.
That's a good guess, though.
81 is 2. I'm
Okay.
thinking the original. 77 is the original.
82. What came out in 82? Golly, I don't remember. I was 10. I don't remember.
Cannonball Run.
That's
no.
a good one.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Back to the Future.
No, that
that's
was way later.
86. 85, excuse
It's
me.
in the 80s.
84.
Ready?
Yeah.
Number 2 is Rocky 2.
Oh, that was such a great movie. Rocky 2
Right. Number two.
came out the same weekend.
Also debuting this weekend was number 3's entry, Poltergeist,
Oh, that was a great movie.
followed by a movie called Hanky Panky.
I don't remember that. That had Tom Hanks in it though, didn't it?
No, it did not. I
It
had to
did
look
not?
it up. I didn't know, but I looked it up. It's Gene Wilder and Gilda Radner film.
Ah,
Okay.
I don't.
Directed by Sidney Poitier.
Oh Jesus. Okay.
And number 5 was Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, that was great movies. I saw all of those except for Hanky Panky.
I hadn't seen Hanky Panky, but I kind of want to now because it looked funny.
So, by the way, Rocky, was it Rocky 2?
Yeah, Rocky 2.
No, wait, that's not with Dolph Lundgren.
No,
Never
that's
mind. That's he loses in Rocky 2.
No, he wins in Rocky 2. He loses in Rocky. He wins in 2.
He wins in 2.
Yeah.
You gotta have his comeback.
Yeah, this is comeback. That's what,
Okay, so 3 was with Mr. T, right?
yeah, 3 was Mr. T.
And then 4 is with Dolph Lundgren. Dolph Lundgren's my boyfriend.
Does he know this?
Oh, he will if I ever see him.
Oh, he will.
All right, so I will tell you this, that luckily grossing $78 million, this film is in the top 10 films of 1982.
That's amazing.
Where did it land?
9.
209. What do you think, Uncle Henry?
The question is, it was a top 10 film of the year?
Of the year 1982.
I'll say 3.
Number 8.
Oh, wow, we were
We're
close.
close.
Can you name me the top 5 films of 1982?
Rocky 2.
I'm going to say Rocky 2
Hanky
in there.
Panky.
No. Rocky 2's got to be in there.
Forgive me, it's Rocky 3. You're right. So it's
was Rocky 3?
Rocky 3, sorry.
Okay, Rocky 3, and then it's got, let's see, what else? What was the other movie you said? Oh,
Hanky Panky.
I don't think Conan made it in the top
Or
10.
Poltergeist.
Poltergeist
Okay.
definitely made it in the top 10. That was a great movie.
Yeah, but this is top 5.
Oh, top 5? I thought you said 10.
No,
You said 10.
Star Trek is in the top 10. Can you name me the top 5?
Oh, gosh, no.
Jungle to Jungle.
Tim Allen.
So no.
Uncle Henry,
I can't for the life of me think of what would have been.
And
do you know what the biggest film of 1982 was?
Star Wars? I don't
It's a space movie. I'll give you a hint.
Battlestar Galactica.
It is a space
It
movie?
is a space movie. It's
Aliens?
It's probably one of the most beloved space movies.
E.T.?
E.T.
Oh, my God, that was such a good movie.
Number 2 was also related to Star Wars.
Battlestar Galactica.
No.
Not a space
I'm gonna
movie.
keep throwing that down.
No.
I don't know what it is.
Hold on.
I haven't
Related to
seen it.
Star Wars, but not a
It's
space movie.
Yeah.
Spaceballs.
No, that's 86.
Oh, it's a space
Or
movie.
87.
Hold on.
Not a space movie. Spaceballs is a space movie. by the way.
Austin
related,
Powers.
Wait a minute.
Related, directly related.
Directly related to Star Wars?
Does it mean
but
it has
not-
the same writer?
Yeah,
What else did he
Indiana
make?
Jones.
Raiders of the Lost Ark
Yeah,
is number
Raiders
2.
of the Lost Ark, I got it.
Number 3 is Rocky 3. Number 4 is On Golden Pond.
Oh, that was a good
What
movie.
a pretty good. This is a good year for movies.
It was. That
number,
was really,
number 5, An Officer and a Gentleman.
That was a fantastic movie.
I have seen none of those movies.
Oh
You've
my
never
gosh.
seen E.T.?
Oh,
You've never
pieces
seen
of
Raiders
it.
of the Lost
I've
Ark?
seen pieces of E.T.
E.T.'s
You've
going
never
on the
seen
list.
Raiders of
I
the
haven't
Lost
seen any of Indiana Jones. We've talked about that.
Oh, that's...
Oh.
Yeah. And now at this point, I'm no longer watching, like even going to try to watch them
You're
because
gonna,
I've seen none
you
of
are
them.
going to love those lectures. You are going to love
best.
those lectures.
He's the best.
I'm saying, those are good movies. You need to watch
Raiders is
those.
okay. I like Last Crusade, but I'm
No,
not my
see, I'm a
favorite.
Raiders girl. I like the first one. And the second one
If you
is...
love
the
archaeology
second
and
one
hate
is my-
Nazis, you'll love Raiders of the Lost Ark.
The second one's my favorite because the little Asian kid, Dr. Jones, Dr. Jones, is great.
I think that's offensive now.
I'm sorry. It was still funny. He was in the Goonies, too.
Which she's also not seen.
So I went to film school. There's another level.
Yeah, she
to
went to
this.
film school and hasn't seen these
I went to
films.
film school. So there are some of these movies where I've seen scenes from them because I
Because
had to
of her-
watch scenes and then like comment about them, but I have not seen the full movie. So like E.T., I know I've seen scenes from E.T. because I watched them for film school.
Okay, I've got to ask.
Yep.
You were not allowed to watch films.
Right.
But then you went to film school. Why
Yeah.
did you go to film school?
Because I really enjoyed directing. I did
Okay.
that for plays in school, so I always wanted to be a film director and retire with my own theater. And went to film school for 3 years and had to step back because it's stupid expensive, first of all. And hit a point where I was like, it became very competitive because things became more accessible. Technology became a little bit easier for people to just be directors. And I have 3 kids, so I was like, I'm not going to fight as hard as other directors would. So instead, I'm going to focus on theater.
Okay.
I like the way it makes people feel.
Okay. Film directing has got to be much different from stage directing, right? I mean,
It is, in
you're
a sense.
telling a story with pictures.
I don't necessarily enjoy directing in theater. I do more production managing and stage managing.
And you're great at
And
that.
every time I do a show,
I enjoy that a lot.
Stage manager.
As someone who's been in both,
She's so good at it.
I have been in both film and on stage, and it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not directed, but I can see how it would be completely different to direct a film versus a movie, because you are, when you direct a theater, you know, you've got your whole cast and you have rehearsals and you can schedule rehearsals and you have a lot of control. As a movie director, you're under budget restraints, time restraints. You can't, there's nothing is done consecutive. You shoot things out of order. You do the same shots 50 freaking times because of different camera angles and different things going. I would be frustrated as a film director.
See, I think film directing and production managing / stage managing are kind of more on the same level for those reasons. It is more chaotic. You do have to work under restraints. I do think that you get more creative and effective films if you have a smaller budget, like we saw with this film.
Yes.
Because I think when you have money, the mindset is, it's fine, we'll scrap it, we can do it again, we have the money. But when you don't have the money, you have to really go, well, how can we make this work? And you're more creative and you can come up with better ideas.
Right.
And so you do have to have that aspect as a film director. Being a theater director, you're putting a lot of your responsibility on the actors themselves. Like you have to be able to know that as soon as this opens, you're no longer in control of it. So the best thing you can do is just let them know where they can go so they can be seen and they can be heard, and then teach them how to display that emotion. But after that, if somebody forgets their line, they just have to know how to be that person they need to be.
I think
the focus is different.
As a film director, you have to be able to trust your casting, because you don't have time. You don't have a lot of time to spend on character development so much. You have to trust your actors, I think,
they need
to do their job, because you have to worry about what's going on over here and what's going over here and what's going on over here and on all of that stuff. And even though you do have input as to what your actors do, you also have to trust your actors to just do their jobs. Whereas on stage, you can spend a lot of one-on-one time coaching actors to develop their character the way you want them to.
So this film had a luxury that a lot of films haven't. This film had a lot of rehearsal time.
Oh, that's
most
crazy.
movies don't have rehearsal time.
That's crazy.
Again, as you say, you must trust your actor. You cast an actor, and you may not see them again until you're on set or wardrobe or anything. But your first real interaction as a director with them is when they're on set. So you have to trust them to know their lines and do their job.
Right.
And then you work together. In theater, you have that rehearsal time. Nicholas Meyer wanted to do rehearsal time with everybody. He had rehearsal time with everyone except Ricardo Montalban, who was working on Fantasy Island.
Right.
Couldn't do it. So basically what he did was, here's Moby Dick, read that, everything is in there. And that's what Montalban did. And so then, and of course, went back and watched his old episode so he could get the character again. But Meyer's a big believer in rehearsal, because you can he says scripts are overwritten, and this is as a he's a screenwriter. Scripts are overwritten, so as you rehearse, you know what to cut. So he's already pre-cutting stuff before there are. So he's also saving budget by. So what you're doing is, well, it's not really saving budget. We're redirecting your budget to rehearsal, so it doesn't reflect on the screen. So you'll better performances on the screen, but not so much fluff that you have
That's
to cut.
awesome,
editing.
because you don't hear that often where you have rehearsals for movies.
No.
I think there should be done.
I think so too. But I think actors would want it too. But it's
but then you have to pay the actors for rehearsing, so it gets into the budget.
So our final thoughts of the film, and anything else we missed and we wanted to discuss. We'll start with our guest.
Final thoughts on the film? I don't know that I have final thoughts, because I still enjoy watching it over and over and over again. To me, it's, as a Star Trek fan, it's my favorite representation of the entire franchise. And I always find something I enjoy about watching it.
Stephanie?
I absolutely love this film. It is very emotional. It brings out, for somebody like me that's not very emotional, it does bring out the, certain emotions. I have a lot of connection to these characters from my childhood. It's a fantastic film, very well orchestrated. I just absolutely love it.
Justina.
Watch it for the first time with a Trekkie who can tell you who the characters are and their relationships. That's it. That's all I got.
I love this film not as a Star Trek film. I think this is a fine example of good cinema. And when I do a list of my top 10 favorite movies, this movie always ranks high, usually 2 or 3, depending on my mood. This may be blasphemy to my other podcasts, but I always rank Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan over The Empire Strikes Back.
Wow.
It is a better film.
Well, I agree, because The Empire Strikes Back has the daggum Muppet in it, which is ridiculous.
The Muppet is ridiculous. I'm not fond of those scenes. But there's not a scene in this that I am bored in. That is not true for Empire. I just saw Empire Strikes Back a couple of weeks ago in the theater again, and it was wonderful to watch. But when Luke gets to Dagobah, I kind of check out.
Do you know? This is the difference for me between Star Trek and Star Wars. I enjoy watching Star Wars, and I look at those films, and I feel like these are fantasy films. This is great. I look at Star Trek, and I watch these films, and I think this is our future. This could actually be one day reality.
Yeah, but we got to get through World War III and the eugenics
war.
war.
But do you understand what I'm saying? It's
yes.
Even though they're sci-fi and whatever, I look at these films as like, this is our future, and there's so many things that Star Trek created that were fantastical that are now reality already. Cell phones is one of them.
iPads.
I mean, and to me, it's like I'm watching possibility, and it touches me differently.
Oh, I understand. For me, I'm someone who's both directed film and stage,
right?
And I'm a great lover of movies. There's not a movie like even a science fiction film. There's nothing like this. I mentioned this earlier. You don't do a movie where you don't put your main hero and main villain not together.
Right.
You don't do that, and it works so well. I mean, they're interacting with each other on view screens or through conversations on the comm, and it's just watching those two actors go at it. It's just magical.
It's beautiful.
It is William Shatner's finest piece of work.
It is.
It is. It's
Ricardo Montalban's finest piece of work, and you're lucky to get them both together in the same film. Before I go, I wanted to. Someone pointed this out to me, and it made me look at that scene before I watched it. Made the scene look different to me. We all know the meme out there of Khan.
Yes,
right.
It has transcended not just Star Trek. It's been in other TV shows.
Right.
There's a GIF of Kirk screaming it. It's everywhere. Here's a question for you. Why does he yell it?
He's yelling because that's him expressing his frustration and his rage. He knows that he's not communicating. It's not to communicate. It's to just express himself.
Right, but
like he stubbed a toe.
Right. To lead into it though, Khan says to him that he's to Kirk that he's done far worse than kill him. He's marooned him. He's left him alone, buried alive, and that's when he yells Khan. Is that what he's mad about? For years, I thought that's what he was reacting to, and then I learned that I was wrong.
Oh, okay.
And here's why I was wrong. Spock communicates with Kirk earlier in the film, after he's on Regular One, and says, if we go by the book,
right,
hours seem like days, so it'll take us 2 days to repair And that's the reason why they're doing that is so in case someone else is listening, i.e. Khan,
Right.
that they will like, oh, the Enterprise is damaged. It's going to take 2 days to repair, when realistically it's only going to take 2 hours. Kirk is playing Khan the entire time. The Khan is not even real. And I think that is beautiful. I've watched this movie's 38 years old.
That's right, because he knows he's not stranded.
He's not stranded.
He knows he's not stranded.
But I've watched 38 years old, and this movie's 38, and I have seen it countless times, and I'm always like, well, he's just mad because he's stuck here now. He's not stuck.
He's not stuck. He's never been stuck.
Dawned on me. Never thought about
that
this.
he's playing Khan.
Because he's in control the whole time. I just thought that was neat. I just wanted to pass that along.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Scotty.
Never thought of that. So if you've thought of that, if you've never thought of that, again, the more you watch this, like I said again, for me now, as I'm older, the whole what's your purpose as you become older, it's just a strong message to me. And then at the end where he feels young again, I get that. I totally get that. So,
absolutely.
It's fun. Uncle Henry, where can we find you?
I'm available at newsradio710.com. Facebook, look for the Uncle Henry Show.
You also have the Uncle Henry podcast that you can find on iHeartRadio.
Yes.
There's a second Uncle Henry we've discovered. There's two when I'm listening when I look for him. Uncle Henry's you'll notice he's got the icon with his cool hair.
That's it.
The other one's like a children's guy. So
there's numerous businesses and other radio people that have used this name.
Well, that's terrible.
No, it's not.
It's not.
I've got my zip codes.
There you go.
You also have a weekly show on Facebook.
Yeah, just go to the Uncle Henry Show Facebook page and you'll find all that junk.
And it's wonderful. And thank you so much for coming. I had a great time.
Thank you. I love talking about this. This is a lot more fun than what I get to talk about most of the time.
We may have you back on for another Star Trek film.
This has been great.
Or any other film.
I'm so sorry.
And maybe you can
Another
have
Star
us
Trek?
on your show.
That is something that I have already talked about with my collaborators. Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Oh, we're going to in November do another one of your favorite films. Because me and Uncle Henry have been friends for years now.
Right.
And I know another one of your favorite films is Smokey and the Bandit.
So I don't know if you know this, but every November I raise money for the Movember Foundation.
Yes, I do know that.
Okay, so I get to choose the films for our November films, and I usually pick things where people have awesome mustaches like you, or films that are like manly films. So I've chosen for November this year Roadhouse and Smokey and the Bandit.
Well, a nice choice.
So we'll have you. We'll see if you're available. See if we can get you out.
I would look.
Smoking the Bandit.
That was one of the great horrible. It's just a great disappointment in life that Star Wars came out the same year and beat Smokey and the Bandit. Would have been the #1 movie of that year had it not been for Star Wars.
So everyone will know the answer to the #1 film of 1977 when I ask it.
Okay. Well, yes.
So
we will
awesome.
forget. And he'll be here, and
That
he'll be
was
like,
one of
I
my-
told you guys.
That was one of my father's favorite films, Smokey and the Bandit. He passed away of prostate cancer, which is why I chose that one. But it's such a great film, and of course,
Burt Reynolds.
Thank you.
See, our psychic powers
Graduated from Florida State. My dad was a big Florida State fan. Don't hold that against him. He's from Florida. He's from Florida. He's not from here.
No problem.
But he also liked Bama, though. He was a huge Bama fan.
Good for him.
So, but anyway,
Well,
I'm excited.
On that note, this is Scotty saying this is our contribution to the multiverse. Go out and make yours.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, yes.